Right, I don't know about you, but I have got my hot tea for the evening. Sorry about the change up in the link. For some reason, YouTube had an error on the link that I was going to use for the live. So give a couple minutes for the Patreon crew to come in and then we can jump right in. So obviously, after the holidays, thinking about gardening is just hard. It's not easy, trying to get ourselves motivated. And so as much as this Q&A is about things that you could be or should be doing in the garden, honestly, I would rest. Take it easy. I think especially for those of us that are in warmer climates, the tendency is to feel like we always have to be doing stuff. And especially like in Florida, California, Texas, where it's warmer all the time, we don't take enough opportunity to be okay with slowing down and to be okay with not having to do stuff all the time, go, go, go. Now, I'm a doer. I love to be outside. I love to be in the garden. But I think, honestly, the natural rhythm of humanity, we need rest. Whether you call that rest or Sabbath or just hanging out and watching Netflix, whatever it happens to be, I think it's so important for us to do that this month. So yes, this is Q&A about what to do in the garden, but also just rest and be okay with it. Have a cup of tea, stay, in bed a little bit extra, go to bed earlier. I love rising and setting with the sun, the best that I possibly can, and so a lot of times in the morning, I'll get up, I'll do, my hot coffee in the morning, my pour over, and then I'll go out and I'll do the chicken chores and I'll feed some of the cows and I'll go take a stroll through the food forest and just kind of take it easy, and I would say more than all of this to-do stuff that we're going to cover, just rest. Just be okay with resting. Be okay with chilling out a little bit. So, that being said, what do you want to do in the garden this month? So, as usual, what I'll do is I'll take the questions that were given through Patreon first. If there's other questions, those can be added into the chat. And then I'll kind of run through, all of the ones that I've got there. So when we start off right now, I'm going to go through some of the top things that I would be doing depending on what growing zone that you happen to be in. So for me personally, I'm in zone 9, so there's tons of stuff that need to be done in the garden this month. But for those of you that are in colder climates, zone 3 through 8, it's a little bit easier to rest. I mean, I will say for me, I was up in Michigan over the holidays and it was so nice just to be able to unwind, to relax, sit in front of the wood stove, not have to do much of anything, go hunting, walk around the backyard, go for a run. But if you are in those USDA zones 3 through 8, here's the 3 things that I would be doing if I lived in those zones right now. Now, first and foremost, and I tried to put this on some of your radar last month, plant spring bulbs. Every year, when I lived in Kansas City, every year when springtime came, I would go, man, I wish I would have bought like one more package of spring bulbs. Crocus, muscari, hyacinth, I mean, all the spring bulbs. Allium is my favorite. Allium giganteum is really my favorite because it's like softball size purple awesomeness. The Spartan one is kind of cool too. So the alliums are definitely on the top of my list. But if you're in USD zones 3 through 8, you will regret it if you don't plant your spring bulbs coming up, in the next 2 months. So anytime there's a frost, get out there in the garden. Now, I have done a blog. If you go to permaculturefx.com and click the blog, type in bulbs, and you'll see an article come up of what bulbs I would be planting between the frost. Some of my absolute stunner favorites, that I would be planting at this time of year. The second thing that I would be doing in USDA zones 3 through 8, in those growing zones, plant your garlic. It is not too late to get out there in between those frosts, throw some more garlic in the ground. What kind of garlic? I don't care. Go to the dang grocery store. You can try and order some, but it's probably a little bit late. Just saying. Now, sometimes I did have luck if I went to like a feed mill, not the box stores. Most of the box stores are going to be out by this time, but a lot of the seed and feed mills, the old mom and pop places, they tend to have things in stock that those box stores just don't, or the box stores run out of. So I would be checking there probably. So again, those are the first two things I'd be doing: spring bulbs and garlic. Let me get a sip of my tea. I'm doing dandelion root and chicory and all of the detox stuff. Just starting out the first of the year, trying to like just detox all the gunk, you know. So third thing that I would be doing in USDA zones 3 through 8 is planning and pruning. Now, number one, get a freaking plan. Don't go another year going, well, I'll just figure it out as I go. We all know how that goes, and it doesn't go very well. You know, I mean, maybe it goes good, it goes okay, not great. Why would you settle for just again? I mean, get a good plan. And whether that's you hiring somebody local, it's you planning your own, it's you hiring a virtual consult. I'll do a dang virtual consult with you. I mean, I'm probably not going to go travel to New York, but I just recently I did a consultation for someone in Norway. You know, so very, very easy to get a really good, solid plan to take things from good to great. Because honestly, that difference is how much food is on your table. You know, and that's a big deal. That's a real big deal, because you gotta have two P's: planning and pruning. So pruning. I was up in Michigan. I was pruning a lot of like my parents' stuff, our family property. We have 40 acres that we do deer hunting in a native wildlife habitat, and we have a lot of fruit trees out there. We have persimmon and apples and pears and yada yada, mulberries. And so this is the time of year to be doing that. So January, February, the sap has stopped flowing. So this is when you want to really be focusing in on pruning those apples, those pears, the mulberries, the jujubes, So if you're up in those northern climates, right now is the time to get out there and do that. I know it's not fun, but it's the time to do it. So if you're in the Patreon crew, I did a pruning demo for you while I was up in Michigan, so you can see some examples of things getting pruned there. So that's USDA zones 3 through 8. Let's go on to 9 through 12. So things that I would be doing if I was in, which I am, in USDA zone 9B, I think now, which I think is ridiculous. It's still 9A, we still get cold. But if you're in USDA zones 9 through 11, a couple things that I would be doing. First, I would also, in this zone, be pruning things like stone fruit, and dormant trees. That is the key word, is when are they dormant? You do not want to be pruning fruit trees when all of the sap is flowing, because you're going to increase your chance of getting a bacteria or a fungal infection or just the overflow of the sap, and it just makes a mess. And so it's not the time of year. And I'll be honest, I've worked at greenhouses, and there are some greenhouses in Florida that still, for whatever reason, recommend pruning this time of year in June and July. Don't do that. That's just so dumb. Just so dumb. Don't do it. Don't do it. You're just going to kill your trees. So the key is, are they dormant? And if they're dormant, then go ahead and start pruning. If they're not dormant, and I'll get to this later, not the time of year to be doing it, because there are some tropical fruit trees that are setting flowers and fruit right now, and that is not when you want to be pruning, because destroy your fruit set for the entire year. Now, maybe for whatever reason you want to give your tree an off year, and so yeah, if you want to give your tree an off year, by all means, chop it, cut away, prune away, but I wouldn't be pruning anything that's starting to flower, and definitely not if it's getting fruit set. So second thing that I'd be doing is planting the cold tolerant trees in the warmer climate zones. This dormant time, the dormant planting, is a really good time to be doing peach, pear, plum, nectarine, apple, all of those ones that are dormant, mulberry, fig. These are amazing to plant when they're dormant, especially this year, y'all, because we have had a wet winter and very mild. So what that means is all of the energy is going down to the root system, which is where you want it to go this time of year anyway, because that's going to give you a really nice, healthy tree come springtime. What you do not want to do, which people do anyway, is buy a tree from a nursery when they're in flower and they look beautiful. Terrible time to plant. Terrible time to plant. Now, what we all love to do is we love to go with mom on Mother's Day and pick out a fruit tree and find one that's flowering. Now, you can plant it, but you're going to be picking fruit off. The tree is going to be stressed. You're probably going to have more leaf drop. It's just not, it's not the time of year when it comes time for Mother's Day to be planting those trees. So right now in USDA zones 9 through 11, plant peach, pear, plum, nectarine, mulberry, what else is there? Loquats, all of those things that are good and cold tolerant. Get those puppies in the ground. And then third thing I'd be doing this time of year, which I am doing this week, is annual vegetable gardening. So this year on the property here, the Fort FL, we partnered with Seed the Stars, a local seed saving company. They are absolutely fantastic, super, super knowledgeable. Ryan and Kelly have a vast amount of experience. And so they've taken over our main crop garden. So we're enjoying a lot of wonderful greens right now. So we have mustard greens and arugula and mizuna. So there's tons of greens right now. The tomatoes have not ripened yet. They've just holding on a little bit. And if yours are doing the same thing, don't worry about it. It's because we have cold nights and tomatoes don't love those 50 and under night times. They're gonna be fine. Just let them chill out. They'll ripen when we get a little warm snap and it'll be fine. Other things, I was eating the Cossack ground cherry, or Grandma Ott's has one. There's a couple other ones, Cape Cod gooseberries. So those are ripe right now and falling off. I was eating those by the kids love them, but they fall to the ground. Citrusy pineapple. But it's also a nice kind of a living ground cover or a living mulch around the base of the fruit trees. And so it was a kind of a fun option there. So right now, annual vegetable gardening, things that I would be planting by seed right now. This week, I'm personally getting ready to do the second round of tomatoes and peppers, watermelon, pumpkin, squash, and zucchini. Those you don't want to be direct sowing right now, so we're kind of wrapping up one round of them. January, we get the frost possibility, and then really, I'll start planting those by seed again for another spring harvest. So that's a little bit weird, but that's how it is in these warmer zones, is we have kind of 2 tomato seasons. We have the fall, winter, and then that midwinter break, which we're getting ready to come into January, February. And then we have that spring round as well, which is really nice. So those are the things that I'd be doing in those USDA zones. I'm going to take another sip of my tea. So I want to jump into the questions that came in through Patreon this month. There were 11-ish questions, and I kind of consolidated a couple of them. Really good questions this month. I don't know if it's because we were all bored over Christmas break. Maybe it was, I don't know. But really good, really fun questions this month. So, question number 1 from the Patreon crew. Can you propagate the FUYU, F-U-Y-U persimmon from cuttings when you prune? And if so, when do you want to do that? Answer is absolutely yes. Any of those other cool varieties, FUYU, Jiru, FUYU Hana, any of those other varieties, Haishia, those can all be cut from the parent plant and then grafted. I love grafting them on the native persimmon because the native persimmon, it's hard to get a really good tasting one, but you can always graft something into it. And so I would definitely utilize those cuttings for sure. Go find somebody who has another variety of persimmon and try grafting your own. And if you can't find a native persimmon rootstock, come to my farm and I will gladly show you where a couple of those are. I mean, they just are native all over Florida. They're like weeds, to be honest. And most of them don't produce a yummy fruit. Once in a while, you get a really good one. The last place that I lived, they were hundreds, if not thousands of them all over the property. And there were like maybe 5 trees of the hundreds of them that produced yummy fruit. The rest of them were just very, very astringent, even when they were ripe and fell to the ground. But when you find a good one, heckin' yeah. But any of those have a great rootstock that you can do. When? Now-ish. Anytime from now until when they start budding out in the springtime is great. Really, the persimmon, you can do pretty much any time, unless we're like bitter, crazy cold. Probably not going to want to do it then. My favorite time to do it is like end of February. because that's when the trees are still dormant here in zone 9 through 11, but they're starting to wake up a little bit. So the sap is flowing, the graft is going to take a little more. So I'd give it a shot now, but if you've got patience, I would definitely wait until end of February to try those persimmon grafts. Question number 2. What do we add to the soil to acidify our soil? So this is a big question in Florida. There's a lot of assumption because I think a lot of times in northern climates, the sand in northern climates like Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, New York, Pennsylvania, a lot of their sandy soil tends to be more acidic. However, Florida sand is usually alkaline, which is really hard. So the irony in it is we, for whatever reason, thought it was a great idea, stupid, to do citrus trees in alkaline soil, which means we have doomed ourselves to acidifying all the time. Now, yes, there are absolutely patches of Florida sand that is acidic soil. So please don't hear me and go, oh my gosh, I have acidic soil in my yard. You probably do. But by and large, a lot of our sand here is not. It's more alkaline. It's a little bit harder, which is why we have to amend. However, if you do want to plant citrus trees or other things that love acidic soil, so things like the citrus, blueberries, jabuticaba, pineapple, muscadine grapes, azalea, olives, those all love acidic soil. If you want to acidify your soil naturally, there's a couple ways you can do it. My personal favorite is honestly used coffee grounds. Local coffee shops, go to them and just say, hey, can I come a couple days a week and get your used coffee grounds? Now, yes, they are going to have some pesticide residue. However, most of that residue, beloved, has come off when it was brewed, which means you're drinking it. So when you're using it in the garden, most of those residues have been boiled off because that water is 145 degrees as it's coming through those coffee beans. So you don't have a whole lot to worry about because a lot of that has been boiled out and rinsed out when the coffee or the espresso is being made. If you don't want to use that method, always use pine needles. However, it is a myth that dried pine needles will acidify soil. They do not. The only pine needles that will make your soil more acidic are if they are green. They absolutely have to be green. That sappy flow in them, the L-pinene, is the terpene that's actually going to help make that more acidic. So if you're adding in pine needles to your soil that are dried, you get them in a bale, that's doing two things for your soil, jack and squat. It's not doing much. So definitely use the green pine needles. Now, if you don't have access to the used coffee grounds or green pine needles, the other alternative is just buy organic sulfur, and you can sulfur your soil. And that is mineral. So it's not a crazy, weird chemical that you're adding on. It's naturally occurring in nature. So you can use those three methods to acidify your soil. And this is really the time of year to be doing that with those, especially blueberries. I'm getting ready in the next couple weeks to start fertilizing blueberries. I don't have a lot. I have a couple of them. They just don't do awesome in Florida. Now the native one, Daros, is a little more alkaline friendly, but the berries are really, really small. So that's my thoughts. Question number 3 is on solarizing. This person had they were trying the solarization method to basically kill off grass and pre-existing stuff that was in the soil. And they have a few spots that are alive, that the grass is still green underneath, and they're trying to figure out why. I know this person. The reason why is because we've had a really weird winter where it's been very, very, very cloudy, like a lot cloudy and really cold. And so the combination of no sun and lower temperatures isn't killing those, tougher grasses. So either one is we just got to have warmer temps or more sunlight. Lift the tarp up, you can dig out that spot, and then, they'll be good to go. Or you can always just spray some vinegar, horticultural vinegar underneath of the tarp in that one spot, and then just let it continue to cook. So those would probably be your options as far as finding a good solution. But you didn't do anything wrong. It's just we've had a lot of cloudy days, a lot of rain, and very, very cooler cooler on average weather, but mild nights, man. I've been loving this mild night thing. In my area, we haven't had a single frost this winter yet, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I actually still have like avocados on a couple of trees. Like the winter Mexican I just saw had a couple avocados on there, which I'm like, come on, like holding on, holding on. All right, so question number 4, pruning in climate zone. I already kind of covered for those of you in the cold climates, you guys are doing peach, pear, plum, nectarine, pretty much everything in the colder climates can be pruned right now. But if you're in USDA zones 9 through 11, there are some things that we do want to be pruning. Now remember, the general rule of thumb is the tree dormant? If it is not dormant, meaning it has flowers coming to bud, it has new growth coming out, or has fruit coming, it ain't dormant. So it's not going to be the time of year to do that. So for example, right now, do not prune avocados, mangoes. Some mangoes are even flowering right now because we've had so much warmer weather. Some mangoes are starting to come into flower. Carambolas are still, the star fruit are still flowering. Loquats are flowering like crazy. Don't be pruning those right now. So those are things that you want to prune right after they fruit on a really hot, dry spell. So for example, like when what's the sweet one? Mangoes. When mangoes are done fruiting, and give your tree a week or two to kind of settle down, like dial down a little bit, and wait for a really hot, really dry stretch to where that tree just goes, that is when you prune. So here, what am I pruning now? Peach, pear, plum, nectarine, mulberry. Mulberries are a hot freaking mess right now, but it's a great time to prune them, and it's a great time to share about some mulberry ideas. Because I will trade you. I have 21 varieties of mulberry now. I just want to be that guy. But I heard there's a lady in Florida that's got like 100 varieties. Jeez. I mean, that's like, I want to go be friends with that lady. Like, what do I got to bring her? Like, what trees? Like, do I just bring her like 5 chickens? Like, I will bribe you. I will find a way. I'll find a way. So that's what I'd be pruning right now, January, February. A couple ones that they had specifically on their question were, should I prune loquats? No, do that after they fruit and give them a few weeks on a really hot, dry spell. Guava, yeah, I would go ahead and prune guava right now because if we don't get a frost or a really cold snap, they may not fully go dormant. So I would probably be pruning guava right now. Strawberry tree, absolutely, be pruning that one, or Jamaican